John is a longtime member of Washtenaw Audubon and the area coordinator for the May count and area coordinator. As he told us, he is originally from Wales, where he started birding at age 8. He's now going to tell us about his odyssey through the Rockies. Take it away, John.
Great. Thank you for the intro, Mike. I'm going to just share my screen. All right. So hello, everyone. Thank you for attending. I'll add a little bit to what Mike said, that I came to the US in the early 90s and I've learned a lot from a lot of you over the years. I was a very novice birder there and took a little bit of a hiatus from birding, I think, in my middle age and in my old age now that I'm really old, in my 50s. I'm pretty serious birder all over again. And recently moved to experiment with living in Ecuador, where I'm broadcasting from right now. So a little background. I did lease a Tesla a couple of years ago, and it has been a wonderful birding companion because it's pretty quiet as an electric vehicle. And after the pandemic hit, I really thought that since my employees, myself, were working so well from home, that I could potentially instead take my business on the road and have my meetings from hotels and so on. So I equipped the back of the Tesla with a bed. So it turns out you can put pretty much a full-size bed back there, and it's quite comfy. So pretty much every other night, or sometimes 2 nights in a row, I'd sleep there, and then I'd stop at a motel and take a shower every few days. So that was, it was really great too, in terms of just being able to sneak up on a lot of species as well. So this is the trip I took. So I just stepped through a little bit. I left the day after the May bird count. And as of, so I left, it was a Sunday evening, and by Monday, I think afternoon, I was in South Dakota. And that was my goal, was to really get to South Dakota where the birding would really begin. And I'll just, as I go through this, I'll mention a few of the good spots that hopefully you can possibly keep in mind as I go through the pictures. So one thing was interesting in South Dakota is first there was one where I saw an eBird. This gentleman had seen something like 800 American golden plover. So I went to find those. I did find them. I didn't find 800. I found maybe 200 or 300. But if we look at south of the freeway there, going through South Dakota in the middle, I'll mention this in the talk. There are a bunch of counties there, as Douglas County and a few others, which are just full of little ponds. So that it's just a great time for exploring waders in particular, of course, water birds. But and the waders are in breeding plumage in May. So it's a good time to really compare and contrast the waders. And I learned later, even up all the way through that corridor into North Dakota, is wonderful too for ponds and waders. I should mention too, before I go further, in South Dakota, then there's the Badlands I'll get into, and then there's of course the Black Hills down in the corner, and those are areas I decided to stop at. Then I went into Wyoming, but just up in the upper corner there, but there's the Thunder grasslands, which are very exciting. And some other really nice grassland areas to get interesting species. And then up into Montana is where I headed. I didn't really plan to go far north in Montana. I was after some species in particular. longspur, the chestnut-collared longspur was my main target there, and the Baird sparrow, which I didn't find there. Then after Montana, I came back down into Wyoming to Cody, and then into Yellowstone, spent time in Yellowstone. Then through the Tetons into Jackson Hole, which is a really interesting town, a little bit Ann Arbor-like, and then across into Idaho. Some interesting things there I'll talk about in the talk. And Utah, to me, it starts to get really interesting then, coming down the west side through Utah. Beautiful in the north, and of course, gorgeous canyons and so on in the south. And then Arizona was all the main sort of missing target species, or I shouldn't say all, many of the main targets for me were really in Arizona that I was after, lifers. New Mexico, the north of New Mexico around Los Alamos turned out to be really fantastic. And then, of course, Colorado is always wonderful. And there were quite a few remaining target species there to go after, not only in the Rockies, but out in the grasslands as well, such as Mountain Plover and the other longspur now that they've renamed. Is it thick-billed longspur, I think? And then back up again through Wyoming again, back into South Dakota. I revisited the Black Hills because I had missed out on a particular target that was there, which is the black-backed woodpecker. And then north into North Dakota and all the way back across again. And I went up to North Dakota in particular after a couple of sparrows I was missing. So all the way to North Dakota for sparrows, but I love sparrows, so that's cool. And so I think I'd mentioned to Mike 65 lifers. It turns out, upon a bit more analysis, 58 lifers, 29 other species that some I'd forgotten I'd even seen, to be honest. Others I'd seen a long time ago, but they weren't in my eBird. So in some ways they were kind of lifers. So starting out South Dakota, where I said the waders were interesting. I just had to throw in some because to me, that as I go around America, there are very interesting characters. So this guy was apparently walking across. I'm not sure how much of America, but with a cross, carrying a cross. So that was pretty interesting for me. So I'll put in a lot of birds, of course, not lifers, but they were quite nice photos. I will admit early on, this isn't a Ben Lucking situation where I've got this amazing, camera. I don't have a point and shoot type camera, but it can take some nice pictures. So there will be some pretty nice pictures, but a lot of these are just sort of lifer pictures too, just to having seen the species. So I mentioned these ponds. I just wanted to touch on it briefly. They're not really lifers for me. But it was amazing seeing these ponds would just be full of waders. There were just so many of them. It was just almost too much. So looking at a pond like that, you might see the birds you're familiar with, like a pectoral. And I will hesitate, in saying what these are. So you can hazard a guess or see if you know as these pop up. So then this guy would show up, and there were. Again, it was so wonderful because I would always see these, very, very occasionally in Michigan. But to see so many of them, there'd be groups of these in 5 or 6 here, and another group over there in another pond. And you can contrast this guy with this one. And these are both of these species that where the wings are longer than the tail, and they have that sort of more slender look. And on the left, so again, this was nice because they're mostly in breeding plumage, these birds, right? So you really got to see. So you get all that sort of on the white-rumped sandpiper on the left, the very sort of spotted chest and down the sides. And then on the right, you have the Bairds with a more demarcated chest. That's why I put the pectoral there, because it's a little bit pectoral-like, but not as clear. But it has a really nice, as most of these do, lovely scalloped plumage on the back as well. So I don't want to get into details, but just lovely to be able to do this kind of comparing similarly with many other waders. Another example here with the short-billed dowitchers here. I should have hesitated a bit more, sorry. But you know, here in breeding plumage, there's lots of barring on the chest and belly, which in breeding plumage the long-billed doesn't have. Again, without getting into details, there are different subspecies, but that's pretty much true for these guys. And there's a bit of a closer look at the short-billed dowitchers. And then there's going to be pictures like this, where, you know, even these birds I thought I was so familiar with. You see them in breeding plumage like this, and it's like, oh my God, that's a cattle egret. It's gorgeous. It's also a nice reminder that while beautiful, birds do not have a concept of compassion for their prey. I have lots of stories about that over the years. Birds can be pretty horrible to their prey. Great to see so many Franklin's gulls, you know, large bodies of water. Again, I'm still in South Dakota here. Lots of these large bodies of water with just lots of these pink plumaged, beautiful plumaged Franklin's gulls. This was distant. This was taken through the scope, Hudsonian godwits. I actually only saw one group of these guys. I'm sure there were lots more around. There was maybe about 8 or so in this group. But again, through the scope, it was wonderful to see them in the breeding plumage. Hundreds of snow geese in, of course, both forms of plumage at one pond. I didn't photograph, but some other key birds, you'd see really hundreds of Clark's grebes was also a very cool thing in this area. Going forward, the Badlands, not a great birding spot, but scenery spectacular. Key species, mammal species, of course, bighorn sheep and bison and prairie dogs. The bird there is really pretty much the western meadowlark. And I do have some videos that I could show later with some lovely sounds of some of what and sightings as well, but we'll see if there's some time for that. But it is worth noting that for me, this was a very special thing, especially sleeping in the car some nights and waking, you know, either at sunset or dawn and hearing the chorus of birds singing, especially I'm thinking in this area in the grasslands. The grasslands would be just full of these really sort of tranquil, you know, liquid songs of meadowlarks and sparrows and bobolinks that was mentioned earlier and so on. Now the Black Hills, again, spectacular scenery. I have lots of slides, but just because there's so many slides, I've been very brief on the scenery. Some gorgeous mammals. So lifers. This was probably the second lifer of the trip, I believe, for me. The first was a Plummius vireo, but I have much better pictures of that coming later. This is the red-naped sapsucker. Pretty bird. Spotted towhee, not a lifer, of course. So again, you know, lots of other birds in these places. So maybe I'll take a moment to think if there were other spectacular ones. Lots of mountain bluebirds, some Townsend solitaires. What else was in the Badlands? Maybe we'll leave it there for now. The others will come up later. I did have that brief stint through the Thunder Basin grasslands and what was called Powder River Road. So all big sort of grassland areas in the corner of Wyoming. It was really nice to see this area where you'd see both eastern and western kingbirds along the same stretch. So this was, for me, interesting traveling where you'd go through these regions where you'd switch from one from the eastern species to the western species with the overlap. Brewer's blackbirds, lark sparrows, lots of lark sparrows, and as I was to find out eventually, lots of nice lark buntings. Pretty regularly would see these guys, the loggerhead shrikes. This was then, I think, another lifer, the gorgeous lark bunting. This is the female. So one of these species where you almost think they could be different species. There's that big white patch in the wing in both of them. And then up into Montana. Leaving, I had an overnight in Billings where I treated myself to a motel and a shower and headed out early the next morning to come across this guy right by the side of the road. So did see a number of golden eagles on the trip, but this guy was just spectacular and just so confiding, so easy to photograph. And then one of my main targets, bird I've been for many years, just as I look through the bird guides, when am I ever going to get to this sort of central portion of the US and have a chance to find these longspurs? So sort of a dream bird for me. And it was really only in one large grassland area that I found them. But once I found this area, there were loads of them I was to discover. And even, and I did not intend to find nests, but there were so many that the females would sometimes fly up and I would find a longspur's nest. So pretty nice to see those beautiful, beautiful eggs. In the same area, there were curlews breeding. So I would hear their lovely calls. And lots of Vesper sparrows, very common there. So that was, again, I did have some other targets. I mentioned earlier I was really hoping to get Baird sparrow, but I didn't find it there in Montana. And then I headed back into Wyoming. The goal was to get to Yellowstone. I went down to Cody, and this was sort of scenery on the way down towards Cody. And going into Yellowstone, so it was closed. So when I first arrived at Cody, I'd heard that Yellowstone was closed and it was about to open the next day at lunchtime. So indeed, I headed out there. And as I was one of the first people to go through the gate as it opened, and of course it had been closed because of the pandemic, but I did get interviewed by a Gazette reporter. And so he got to hear that I was a Welshman traveling around in my Tesla, and I was hoping to see wolves and grizzly bears. So I was in the local news there. So this is interesting to see. In May, you're getting up into higher altitude in parts of Yellowstone, frozen lakes or partially frozen lakes, mountain bluebirds, and then another target for me, another lifer. I think many of you will have seen in Michigan, but Barrow's goldeneye. So very exciting for me. There was a nice pair of them. Later on, I was able to find a few more. Many shots of course, the hot springs in Yellowstone and amazing scenery. Another lifer for me, Cassin's finch. And also sort of interest, I realized that as I went, later on down into the more southern areas, some species would become a bit harder to find. Cassin's finch wasn't too bad throughout the area that, it's in the bird guides. So I'd see these quite a bit. For me, it's always nice to see the different flavors of the dark-eyed junco, the different subspecies. I think this is the gray-headed, if I remember. Of course, marmots. Now, this is an interesting situation that happened for me. In Yellowstone, I didn't have enough charge in my Tesla to make it in and out in the one day, which you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to stay overnight unless you've got a camping permit, but I couldn't make it out. And there was a charger near Old Faithful. So I slept there while the car charged. And then in the very early hours, I drove off, slept some more, woke up again, drove a very little ways, and came across a clearing. And as the mist rose, first you could hardly see anything. As the mist was rising, I realized that there were grizzly bears, and there were 3 grizzly bears. And there was this black wolf that you see in the foreground, and then a coyote there as well. So I got to really watch these guys for quite a while as the mist started to clear. I couldn't get great pictures of the grizzlies because they sort of disappeared before the mist really cleared. But loads of pictures of this wolf and film of the wolf and the coyote. So I was able to get out of the car and approach with all my gear and get some nice photos. So there's that black wolf, and they're on a bison carcass, you can see there. And it was amazing how much would come into this, the ravens and bald eagles, as well as these guys. Just a little bit later, this guy walking along the road past the car. I just like this purely because it just seemed somewhat poetic, the reflection in the water. And then I do know from others, it's not that easy to see wolves in Yellowstone. I think I got really lucky to come across yet another one. And this guy was really cool. First, I saw it quite a long way in the distance, but eventually was able to get much closer to it to see that it was looking for was a mallard's nest, and it was looking for its nest, and the mallards were going crazy. Just some more scenery. There's a bald eagle in there, getting a little closer. So that's Yellowstone, and now heading into, heading to Jackson, Wyoming, which I'd mentioned. I just love that town. It's a beautiful town. So I ended up staying there about a week. Some of the mammals in the area. Next lifer for me was Brewer's Sparrow. I think I had seen this just a little bit before this picture, but they were right in the town. And there's a Brewer Sparrow sitting with the white-headed. Lots of western tanagers, just all over the place in Jackson. Gardens, more cassin sparrows, get very close to those. I just have to put this in because there was a really nice close-up opportunity. The great horned owl with some couple of young. Black-billed magpie. These aren't lifers for me, but just birds that I really enjoyed seeing and photographing. Evening grosbeak. This actually was a lifer, surprisingly. I sort of really double-checked my records. The Calio Hummingbird. Eventually got to see a lot of those. Just a nice picture of a Lincoln sparrow, a very common bird there, and lovely song. You'd hear them quite a bit. Another one regular there. Hear the song in of course the right habitat. McGilvery's warbler. Just love it with those sort of split spectacles. And then across into Idaho, so up over the mountains, and then down the other side into this long stretch of just gorgeous sagebrush habitat with just so many flowers. I wish I had time, but just so many lovely flower photos. And I really got interested in identifying flowers on this trip as well. I couldn't tell you them all now, but I could have then. So more of the scenery there in Idaho, the south of Idaho. Swainson's hawk. I know Jacko mentioned looking for one today, maybe. And so that was really, I hate to use the word dirt bird, but Swainson's hawks eventually just all over the place. Wouldn't see that many red tails, but lots of Swainsons. Another lifer for me was the Sage Thrasher. These in southern Idaho, these guys are just all over the place singing in the sagebrush, along with the Brewer's Sparrows. Those are the two really major songs that you're hearing in that area. So there's the Brewer's Sparrow in the sagebrush. Couldn't resist. I mean, tons of butterfly pictures. I put very, very few in here though. And honestly, I never did have a chance to follow up in naming all of the butterflies I found. That's still a future project. And then I'll mention, you know, after going through this area, I discovered Ketchum. And not to dwell too much, but to go through some really poor areas, as I would see in a lot of America, and then come across a town like Ketchum. I don't know if you guys know about Ketchum, but it's unbelievable. You just see this town, and it's such wealth. Many, you know, famous people live there, actors, and it's just mansions everywhere, and everyone is sort of unique and different. So I stayed in Ketchum for a few days, and then I headed north into the more mountainous areas of Idaho. The birding, I think, I wasn't really finding a lot of great new species there. I did find one new lifer, which was dusky flycatcher. And then I headed down into Utah. In the north of Utah, there were some beautiful grasslands. I'll mention now in case I forget. If anybody's interested, I have a record of all the places I went. Of course, it's in eBird as well. And, you know, if anyone really wants to find anything in particular, I did learn with a lot of pain in you know, a lot of searching where the best places are to find certain species in particular. In this area, again, I'll mention I would sleep out at night along these sort of country roads, at pull-offs and things. And here I'd be hearing a lot of common porwheel would be easy to hear. Don't judge me, but green-tailed towhee was a lifer for me on this trip. Again, I had to check my records, but I had not seen this before. They were all over the place, singing everywhere through a lot of the trip, all the way through Utah down to Arizona. Fox sparrows, again, pretty regular, singing in a lot of different habitats, but beautiful. I love the song. And then down into southern Utah, I did actually make a bit of a wide detour out into the sort of desert areas of Utah, but didn't really find too much out there. But this Bryce Canyon was just spectacular for scenery. I remember that view right there, hearing an olive-sided flycatcher singing, calling its 3 beers. And then another lifer for me, at least in the US, I once had a flock of red crossbills fly over me in the Alps. But in the US, this was also a lifer for me. I've looked for it many times in Michigan and never found it. But I found lots of them here. There were families, big groups of them with young, and they were really easy to get close to. And this was in the sort of campground area within Bryce Canyon. Western bluebirds. A lifer for me in the US. I previously had this in Belize. This is Grace's warbler. And then I had seen this previously on the trip, but I got a nice picture of it here. The Plummeus vireo, really distinctive song. You just hear this one all over the place. Nice lark sparrow. black-chinned hummingbirds. Yeah, I didn't get great pictures of these, unfortunately. I think I may have one decent one a bit later. Some more mammals. Things, yeah, woodhouses, scrub jay. I'm sure I'd seen this years ago, but I didn't have it in my eBird. Again, I've seen this before, but I just love it. And I am drawing a bit of a blank right now. Feel free to help me out. Which warbler is this guy? Black-throated grey warbler. Black-throated grey warbler. I think we got another, where am I here? This would still be a Western, not a Cassins at this point, I think. Yeah, still Western. Great scenery. This is heading, there's a road, I'm trying to remember the name, the Escalante Staircase, I think it goes to in Utah. There are some ruins up in there. I don't know if it's Anasazi, but there might be Anasazi. And you'd see these in the cliff faces. The grosbeak, black-headed grosbeak. And then another lifer for me. First heard it singing in the distance and then honed in on it at the rock wren. Western wood pewee, of course not a lifer. Also not a lifer, this was the ash-throated flycatcher. And this was a lifer. So I'll hesitate for a minute if anyone wants to make their best guess. Are we looking at Virginia or Lucy's? And this one in these sort of really desert areas in Utah would be Lucy's warbler. I wish I could say more about that. At the time, I could really tell you what is really distinctive in comparison between the two. More scenery. This was an interesting experience as I was heading back out of Utah to head down to Arizona. I stopped at a restaurant for dinner, and I left my passenger side window open with my Swarovski's binoculars on the passenger seat. And even though it's really unexpected that people would steal there, it was probably a tourist or something, but I lost my Swarovski's near Bryce Canyon. And it was really a PTSD moment. Oh my God, I had no binoculars. And I'd seen on eBird, there was a dipper up in the mountains, and the dipper was a lifer for me, the American dipper. So I had to go for it anyway. Even without the binoculars. So I just used my camera and got this bird, slept overnight up in the mountains and waited and I found it. And then the rest of the day or the morning, I asked people in town, there's just nowhere selling binoculars there, but I met a Navajo Indian who sold me his binoculars, and they worked for me for the rest of the trip. They were actually pretty good. So very, very nice of him. So into Arizona, to eventually the Grand Canyon, starting out in what was called Vermilion Cliffs, where I mistakenly thought I would find the condor, but they had left that region at that time. But I did find this lifer, black-throated sparrow. And then eventually to the Grand Canyon. And yes, I found these guys. I did quite a bit of searching before I found them. I had a meeting this morning, the morning that these birds were there, and I had literally about 15 minutes between meetings. So I drove quickly up to the rim of the canyon, and I really wasn't feeling very optimistic, but I heard some kid saying to his dad about some really ugly birds. I thought, well, where did you see ugly birds? And sure enough, these ugly birds were there. But to me, they're not ugly. They're pretty interesting. Although I guess you could say it's not the most beautiful bird. But I got some really crazy photos of these guys. Sort of an ET look there. And then in flight briefly. I can understand the tagging and so on of these birds and marking them, but it kind of put me off a little bit seeing these big tags on them. From the Grand Canyon, I headed down through Arizona. This is a place not far from Sedona. It's called West Fork. It's a really good spot to find some species in particular, which I shall mention. There's actually, I had seen many years ago, but was not in my eBird, the Canyon Wren. This guy was singing beautifully in this spot. Painted redstart. It's very, very common, very easy here. Mammals. This is the speciality that there were other places that I thought I would find this red-faced warbler, but I didn't find it easily. But in this West Fork, this is a guy you can get without too much trouble. Just a gorgeous warbler. I remember that this is a snake that eats other snakes, but I'm forgetting the name. So now I'm down in the south. This is in Madeira Canyon. So if anyone has questions later, can ask me about these canyons. I spent a lot of time in this southern area exploring the various canyons and mountains to get the Mexican specialities. So this is a Rivoli's hummingbird. That's a goldfinch. Must be a black-chinned again. There's a black-chinned with a bit more color. Broad-billed hummingbird, I just love these. I see them so much now in other places, that I travel, but it's lovely to see them there in Arizona. This is a real speciality there. I ended up finding another one and got much better pictures. This is the Berylline Hummingbird. It's a female. Scott's Oriole was a lifer for me, as was the Berylline. And the Trogon, the elegant Trogon, I had not got before. So I got some nice looks at that. Phainopepla was also, I'm not sure so please do tell me when, later if I pronounce these wrong. So Phainopepla, I say. Bridal titmouse, hepatic tanager, almost a lifer. I've seen these in other countries. I had seen this a long time ago in the US as well, but it's nice to see it again. It's the female hepatic tanager. Brown-crested flycatcher. This was a lifer in the US for me. And rufous-crowned sparrow, another lifer. There was rufous-crowned and rufous-winged. I don't think I have a picture of the rufous-winged. Both a bit similar looking. Not a very good picture, but it was a lifer in the US. Sulfur-bellied flycatcher. I love this little guy. This was a lifer. I've since seen it in Mexico really well. But this varied bunting. I just love this variety of color. And northern pygmy owl. I had heard this before somewhere in the US, I think even up in the north. But this is the first sighting. Another nice picture of the brown-crested flycatcher. And then over to the little town of Patagonia, where there's the famous hummingbird place, Patton's, I think it is. And it was closed because of the pandemic. So we had to get distant pictures from the fence, which was very frustrating. not to be able to go in there and see these guys close. But this is the violet-crowned hummingbird. It's a real speciality there. Male phainopepla, if I have it right. This is a cool bird. I'll hang on for a minute in case to give you a chance to think about what it might be. But the clue is in the bill there. And this is the thick-billed kingbird. Ended up finding two of these on the trip. But this is a rarity that not too many show up in Arizona from, again, another Mexican speciality. And then actually Jen came and joined me. Jen is my girlfriend. And she flew in a couple of times during my travels, one time while I was here in Arizona and later on while I was in Colorado. And so I had to backtrack, or I had to, but it was really nice. We backtracked up to West Fork again, and we were going to the Grand Canyon. So we saw Stella's jay there, acorn woodpecker, just some nice pictures. But getting up near Grand Canyon, there's a really nice spot just before getting to the rim where you can pretty well find pinyon jays there. So I didn't know that. So it was nice to know there's a spot where you can reliably get pinyon jays. And again, a bird I'd seen many years ago. So it was almost like a lifer for me. Love to see these. We did also get, some reason I thought we had pictures, but I wasn't finding it. We did get the gray flycatcher here as well, which was a lifer for me in this area. Pygmy nuthatch, more canyon wrens. This is back at the canyon, back at the Grand Canyon now. Another rock wren at the Grand Canyon. More jays, beautiful jay there, woodhouse grub jay, I think still. Mexican jays we get in Madeira Canyon as well, which was a lifer. Then heading back down south again, we came across burrowing owl. This was actually at an area just called Arlington that was close to Phoenix. Another flycatcher, Gamble's quail. Actually, you probably know this if you've been out west, but in the right spots, these are very easy to get. Believe female broad-billed hummingbird. And so now I've moved around the other side of where Madeira Canyon is, the other side of those mountains, into an area called Ash Canyon and Miller Canyon. So again, if you guys want to know, I'll tell you about these places later if you don't know, but they're wonderful spots. Canyon towhee, Gila woodpecker, curve-billed thrasher. Pause there. This is Anna's hummingbird. It's, of course, lovely when they look at you with the sun on them. Another Gila, shiny cowbird. So that's that moment when birds have that sort of dinosaur look, that prehistoric look. Got to make sure I get them right here. Bullock's oriole, I think, here, female. Now this is kind of cool. This was up in Miller Canyon, and I would hear this guy has a very distinctive song. This is the tropical peewee. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. This is the greater wood peewee. Greater wood peewee. And you might see dates on a lot of these pictures, just validation. This is where I was, that's what I took. This one I'm cheating a little bit. And I only do this in one or two instances where shortly after this trip, I was in Mexico and I get the same species in a much nicer picture. So I threw this one in from my Mexico trip because I saw it here, but got a better picture here. So full disclosure. Similar for this guy. Oh my gosh, I should have put my names on these slides. Rufous crowned warbler. I may have, please correct me on that. I have drawn a blank. Beautiful bird, and again found it again in And it's really a speciality. You might know this, but this guy shows up in Arizona. It's a few nests every year, and you can pretty much find them if you know where to go. And there's a nicer picture taken shortly after in Mexico. Mexican jays here, yeah. So these are the Mexican jays, and then this guy got very lucky at a place near Miller Canyon, and there's a place where these guys come in to feed the Montezuma quail. There it is with the female. Another nice picture of the broad-billed hummingbird. And then another speciality of Arizona is the white-eared hummingbird. This guy has taken Beatty's. Beatty's Ranch is a famous spot for hummingbirds, great feeders, tons of hummingbirds there. And there's a nicer picture of the white-eared hummingbird. Nicer male Bullock's Oriole. This is a speciality, and unfortunately I didn't get the male. This is the female. I did see the male briefly, beautiful courgette, but this is Lucifer's hummingbird. So another speciality of the area. Notice the down curved bill. That's a feature of this little bird. This is a Bottlery Sparrow, which I ended up finding in a few spots and started to get familiar with its song. My understanding is that they're generally really not that easy to find, pretty elusive, but I got lucky with this bird in the open singing. Some more butterflies, probably a Julia. Very poor picture, but just to acknowledge the greater roadrunner. Sure enough, he was running by fast. And another lifer, the Montezuma quail was a lifer for me. The Lucifer hummingbird was a lifer, and these scaled quails. This was the only one time I found them, and this was coming right around. Briefly going into, there's a museum in New Mexico, right on the edge of Arizona, close to Patton. And Patton is a great birding spot back in Arizona. And then this is near Patton, where there was an eared Quetzal, which I was lucky to be able to go up and find and get some okay pictures of. But you do see this beautiful blue-purple plumage on the back of the bird there. So this is the eared Quetzal. Ladder-backed woodpecker. Don't have to name that. I love this bird. I've since been finding it in other places, but this was a lifer for me there. So this is the blue-throated mountain gem. Another thick-billed kingbird. Gamble's quail again, curved-billed thrasher, grosbeak. And again, one I'd seen a long, long time ago, but nice to see again, the Arizona woodpecker. Then the Pyrroloxia. Same deal, seeing it again after many, many years. Nice picture of bridal titmouse. Verdin and feeders, more shrikes, hooded oriole. Nice close-up again of this is a different individual, I believe, blue-throated mountain gem. And then a nice find again. These again a real rarity, but there was another one in another spot. I think it was nesting in this area. The Berylline Hummingbird. Just put it in because it was a lifer, whiskered screech owl. Could see it much better, but I'm not able to get a great picture. And another lifer for me you could probably guess it's that other raven, which now again, I'm drawing a blank. Feel free to jump in and help me out. But the one I never seemed to get previously in my trips down south, but I was able to find it. And I put this picture in just because I think of note is the tail, right? It doesn't have so much of the wedge that you get with the common raven. Somebody's going to tell me later because I'm just drawing a hell of a Chinese wall of a mental block here on the name of this guy.
Is it the Chihuahuan raven?
Chihuahuan. Thank you, Julia. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll always think of the dog now. I'll remember. This terrible picture, but I just had to throw it in because there was something important about this guy. This was this buff-breasted flycatcher. It's the last of all the empids for me. So I had every empid that you can get in the US, other than this guy. So I found it in as I was going up over the mountains in Arizona. But it was getting late at night and couldn't get a good picture. This is the Mexican version of the spotted owl. So I guess it's a subspecies, and very, very nice find of a pair of these calling back and forth to each other, which is very cute. That's the male, and there's the female. Turned away from us, but it's a yellow-eyed junco with a youngster. It actually was a lifer for me, it turns out. Got to be careful now, think about exactly where I'm at. So here we're looking at the Hammonds, I believe. I'm going to have to check myself on this later, sorry. So I think we're here at Hammonds as an empid. I think so. No, I'm wrong. At this point, it's Cordillera. This is a Cordillera. So then heading up into New Mexico, I didn't find a lot really in the south to get into, but getting up into Los Alamos, just really interesting, different scenery. There were some of these glyphs that you'd see in the rocks from the native people. Quite interesting. There are quite a lot of them, the hieroglyphs. This is Peewee. It's a young mountain chickadee. Very exciting find. I can't tell you how hard I worked to find this guy. It took days and days of searching the forests around Los Alamos, high up. So this is the three-toed woodpecker. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I was lucky to find a couple of pairs of them eventually and get some okay pictures. That was the male and the female. This is somebody's feeder, the scrub jay. More of the kind of habitat there around Los Alamos. I did, when I first got there, take a hike down into one of these canyons without realizing the time. And then I was searching for a gray vireo, which I didn't find on that occasion. And then I was coming back up the wall of the canyon, very steep. And it got dark. It just got really dark, and I couldn't really find the path very well. So it was a pretty hairy moment to make it back up successfully. I'm going to say brown crest. No, ash-throated. And another big search, a huge quest of this vireo of these big, open, scrubby desert areas. So this is the gray vireo. Again, as I say, I eventually found a couple of them, got really close to them, but it was a lot of work. getting this guy. Some other just nice pictures in New Mexico. And getting onto this guy, the other sapsucker. So this is another one that, you know, I'd look in the books and how am I ever going to find all these sapsuckers? So I got this guy. This is the Williamsons. And this was interesting. It was very late at night. I was very tired. I just pulled my car up over in what I thought was the middle of nowhere and went to sleep. And I woke up in the morning, and the first bird I found at the nest hole right above the car was this Williamson's sapsucker, which is nice. And there was the pair. And I think it's interesting, you know, really take a moment to think this is the same species. The male and female just look so different. This could be a different bird. I did find just that, I think maybe of interest to you, that in the north, especially, you know, back up in Wyoming, Wyoming especially, and Idaho, I'd find the red-naped sapsucker. Down in the south here, I would find more of the Williamsons. I mean, pretty much only the Williamsons. This is the Hammond's flycatcher. So these were and even though I mentioned the other one earlier, you know, some of these were lifers for me too. The Hammond's was not, the Cordilleran was a lifer. So I now have all the MPIDs ticked. Up into Colorado, I mentioned there is a spot, and it's on the maps that I have, and I just put this in because I was surprised. I just stopped at this place, and I saw at least 4, if not 5 bitterns just flying, you know, so it was just clearly a paradise for bitterns in southern Colorado in this wetlands. I forget the name of it now, but again, if anyone wants to know. In the same area, Wilson's phalaropes. I actually saw a lot of these on the trip, but it's a nice picture. Fox sparrow again. And here we're, the fox sparrow, I'm up in the mountains. I've traveled quite a bit now up into the Rockies in Colorado. And this was an area where it was near, let me see what this is near. Sorry, drawing a bit of a blank. I'll come back to it later. But there's what's called Guanella Pass. So this was Guanella Pass. I slept up here overnight. Didn't realize that my trunk was open. So I was freezing through the night. I was wondering, why am I so cold? And it was freezing and my trunk was open. So that was why I was freezing. Heading out early in the morning though, and just being on these mountains was just fabulous. Lots of fox sparrows and some interesting mammals. Gray jay, gorgeous scenery. Another black-throated, more towhees. Another find of dipper, just beautiful. Now I'm in the Rocky Mountains. So I ended up in Estes Park, Rocky Mountain National Park. Some areas where you can really get close to some great elk. This is a moose, female moose. And then a great find for me. I had seen them many years ago in Michigan, actually, Pine Groves Peak, but it was great to see them here. I found a few pairs singing, breeding territory. Always nice to come across any mustelid. I'm a fan of these guys. So this weasel is very cute. Just have to put in the Audubon's form. Nice bird. Again, you know, of course you know this. The flowers in the Rockies are just incredible, but these were just beautiful. Just an interesting sight for me to just see this patch of snow just covered with this these elk. And then this is really the beginning of my quest for the Rosy-Finch, the brown-capped Rosy-Finch. which supposedly is up here, and I would see an eBird, there'd be sightings, and but took me ages, couldn't find the bloody thing. Also ptarmigan, I actually struck out on ptarmigan altogether. Nice little, I think it's a pika, is it pika, pika? Did get lucky climbing a mountain, going up to a mountain to the top with this dusky grouse. This one, I think it just had one chick, so I have a feeling that most of its chicks had been preyed on, but I had one. Clark's Nutcracker, American Pipit. Put this in because I did realize as I was looking at the book and looking at these birds, they have quite a bit of a different look out there, sort of a grayer, smooth, different plumage than the birds I see on migration in Michigan. It's American Pipit. And then here's this guy, and I got to tell you about a PTSD moment with this guy. I just found eventually, after so much work, found this family of Rosy-Finches. And it was so hard to get good picture because I was the wrong side of these guys with the light. And just at the moment when I got the perfect picture, I'd worked so hard for this bird just posed for me. My battery died on my camera, and I do not have the picture. It's still a PTSD moment for me, but still a fabulous bird. And I know where to find them now. So if I went back, I know the place to climb and find these guys. And you have to go to a pretty desolate place where you're not going to see a lot of people to find them reliably. So I've really jumped forward here. So I'm just going to pop back up for a moment and just comment that I climbed really to the top of this particular area. It was quite a hike. And I eventually found another family of these with young and was able to get some nice film. So at least some brief film of these Rosy-Finches. And thick-billed Longspur now. So this is, I headed out from the Rockies into the plains. These are the Pawnee grasslands. And of course, the Longspur. This is a kind of an event that happened to me on a couple of occasions, but this was an interesting one where, because it already happened to me, at a time when I was looking for Cassian Sparrow, which I don't have pictures of because it's so elusive. I don't know if you know this Cassian Sparrow, but as I was going across Colorado and I was away from my car and I saw this black cloud come in and I could hear something, and I ran, in the first case, ran back to my car and made it just in time before I got really pelted with a dust storm and then a wet storm as well. So here I could see this guy coming in as I was photographing the Longspurs and other birds, and really ran back to the car at this point. So I made it to the car and then drove off for a while, and I was on a road which just got completely flooded. My car almost floated down the road. So I luckily pulled up onto a bank and waited for things to ease before I headed out again. And then right after it cleared, you can see this is the look after the storm. It's lovely looking sky, and this is where the plovers were. So again, a lot of scanning and searching to finally come across some of these guys. And eventually I found several of them. Again, it's one I've always wanted to see for many years, so it's exciting. So closing towards the end.
John,
Yes.
which plover is that? The mountain plover?
This is the mountain plover.
Oh,
Yes, sorry. Did I make a mistake? Did I say something else?
no,
So,
you
yeah.
just said plover, and I
Sorry.
didn't know which
Yes.
one.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, sorry. Wow. Thank you.
That's okay.
Mountain plover. And then heading back north again. So went back through Wyoming, back into South Dakota after the bird I'd missed. It's a solitaire here. Unfortunately, I could not get a great picture, but it was a great moment. Just I had been looking all over, climbing through forest, And it was just one of those moments where I looked up, and right on the tree I was under, I didn't see this bird fly in, and it was just right there. Again, not a great light, but I did get great looks at this black-backed woodpecker. So another lifer for me after a lot of work. I had searched for this in the UP before and failed to find it. And then going north, further north through South Dakota, just, you know, noticing how the craziness, these massive, massive open areas. Driving, you just see loads of northern harriers, lark buntings, lark sparrows, western meadowlarks, so lots of these kinds of birds. Some interesting art there as well. Regular really throughout the trip, but it was a nice picture to see these pronghorns here. And then up into North Dakota. Just couldn't resist. I have seen these in other places, especially in the UP, but the upland sandpiper. It's beautiful blue butterfly. Again, I do know the species here, but I'm drawing a blank. Now then, this is the grasshopper sparrow, which is common. These would be all over the place, but lovely to hear. And then the bird I was really after is this guy, which is the Baird's sparrow. And my God, did I have to work hard for this guy. They really just crawl through the grass, and you can flush it, and then it flies about 30 feet and disappears into the grass again. It's very hard to get it to come into the open. So after some work I did. And then later on, I heard a male singing, and this guy was much more cooperative. So I was able to film him and get pictures. So it's a nice additional sparrow. This was, so I am just, by the way, up near this is the Ted Roosevelt Park, grasslands near there in North Dakota. And then this is a place called Mackenzie Slough in North Dakota, heading back along the freeway. And the bird I was after around this Mackenzie Slough was this Nelson's sparrow. Again, not that easy even in that area. I think they're much easier in the northern areas of North Dakota, but this was a tough find in this area. But for me, it's just a beauty. So Nelson sparrow there again. Nelson sparrow. And just for comparison, a clay-colored sparrow. Again, these are common, very common all over the place there. And then for comparison with the early picture, you might remember we showed the other of this species with the barring all along the belly in breeding plumage. So this is the other one. These are the long-billed dowager in breeding plumage. So not the barring, but this nice rufous color on the belly. And I just put this. It was a note for me just to be reminded when with the stilt sandpiper, just that barring, how distinctive that is in breeding plumage. So how easy these are easy to identify when you know that. And then I'm almost home. So I came back through Wisconsin to Green Bay. So sorry, through Minnesota, then Wisconsin, Green Bay, and then up through the northern Michigan, and couldn't resist getting a few pictures of a Kirtland's pair on the way back to Ann Arbor. And that's where I finish with that. How am I doing for time?
It's Jessica here. It's about 8:40, so I'd say if we wrap up shortly and answer a few questions. And
I think that's fine. I have a couple of videos maybe to show, but I think probably that's good as it is if we don't have too much more time.
Well, John, you showed us this video before starting. This was the one I'm
Yeah,
visualizing this now of you in your Tesla, Dawn. I think this is a lovely one to share.
yeah. Okay. So let me just do there's just a couple of these. There's not too many. So let me see if I can go to presentation here and just play a little bit of these. So I'm going to pause there. It's a little quiet, but it was just the point is, you know, pretty early in my trip, this would be the sort of experience when I'd be out sleeping in my car, and then at sunset, this is actually in the Thunder Grasslands in northern Wyoming, and there was a short-eared owl that would be flying around here, and you'd hear all of these lark sparrows, grasshopper sparrows, western meadowlarks. It's just a beautiful cacophony of sound. Go to the next one down here. And then there's a video of this guy. Stop it, move down. And then just a little bit of get a sense of the experience there coming across the wolf from the coyote.
We're not seeing that video. I don't.
Oh,
think.
you're not seeing it?
We're still seeing the sunset.
Oh,
Photo.
okay. So for some reason it's not, so sorry about that. Let me, I don't know why that happened. I thought I was just sharing everything.
While you're poking around, oh, okay, good.
Yeah, but go ahead if you like, if you want to.
Let's wait till you're done with your videos.
Right. So this one, so there's a little bit of what I was showing is the golden eagle, the side of the road there. Then we've got the
oh, there's the coyote. Is that a bear?
yeah, that's the black wolf. The bears had already had walked off by this time as the mist had come up. And this is another wolf. This was the one that was looking for the nest, the mallards. You can see the ducks coming in there a little bit uneasy. And then this I really would like to show. I think I'd like to try to go to presentation mode better. Do you see the owl now?
Now we do, yep.
Oh, good. So this is that Mexican spotted owl. And that's the female. And she called back in that first bit. And then there's a little bit here, just a little clip of the Rosy-Finch, a little higher up. Bit of shaky film, but nice to see the color.
Oh, it's very high up.
Yes. Yeah, so that's it. That's really all I have to show.
Wow.
Thank you so much, John. It was a wonderful journey with you. Your pictures are fabulous, and I could just picture you out there. We have a question about were there any issues with pulling over to sleep in your car? Did you have any state troopers come upon you or anything?
No, yeah, people did ask me that, and I know that I would see other people with campers and so on, and they would go to great lengths to find only, legal campgrounds. No, I think only one time did I ever stop in a legal campground. So, and I never had an issue. I was really careful though. I would always find very quiet places, where I wasn't bothering anyone, and with rare exception where it was late at night. Yeah. So no problem.
We also had a question near the beginning of the presentation about whether you used any bird calls to attract any of the birds you were looking for.
Yeah, I mean, so I think, yeah, it's almost a little bit of judgment possibly, but I do like to be careful. So if birds are on territory, I really would not do that or try not to do that. So there were occasions where I did play the call a little bit, but I will do it very sparingly. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yes, with them being on territory, I know you would be careful not to alarm the birds. We had a question about how much range anxiety you had with your Tesla and charging it.
A lot.
Oh my
A
God.
lot, especially at first. So it took some getting used to, and I did have some very hairy moments where there was one where I really had less than 5 miles of charge left on the battery, and I really wasn't thinking I was going to make it. So I got lucky, and I learned from that lesson to be very careful and to plan carefully. And for the most part, along the freeways, you can get to Tesla superchargers, so it's not a problem. But if you go to somewhere like Cody, you've got to go far enough out of the way where you can't make it. Like I said, in Yellowstone as well. So there you've got to use a more, another outlet, like a 415 volt outlet, and charge for most of the night. So yeah, it just became a matter of being careful.
You help her sleep, this guy, isn't it?
Super crazy person.
The area with the little ponds, I was asking if it was called the Prairie Potholes, and Kathy Carroll says it is. Is that
okay.
where you were, the Prairie Potholes?
I didn't, sorry, that's probably true. I didn't know that term, but yes, that's probably right.
And someone asked if the butterfly, the last one you showed, was a
Carner blue.
Carner blue. Oh, nice.
Is that the question?
It was. They wondered if it was a blue azure, but I don't think
No,
so.
it's a Carner blue.
Carner blue.
Yes.
And I saw that that the warbler you were showing was the rufous-capped warbler.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I knew I was a little bit off, and thank you.
Very close. There's so many bird names.
Well, also,
So-
and also this species was recently split.
Oh.
I think what is now the rufous capped was it. Yeah, there's a rufous capped and a rufous crowned. That used to be rufous capped, something like that. But,
Okay.
Oh, so which
Yeah.
one did John see? We don't know.
it's in the ABA listing or taxonomy update of not too long ago.
Aha, so you might find that you've either been lumped or split, John. Split, I guess.
Split, yeah, or renamed or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Jaco, I'm sure you're right about that, but I don't think your name in the split can be quite right, because there's another sparrow called rufous capped already, or crowned. One of them exists already.
Yeah, one of those warblers.
Right.
We were thinking about the warblers. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yes, you're right. I got
And
that.
you have rufous-capped sparrow as well. I
Yes,
guess.
that's sorry. I was getting confused. You're right.
Very confusing.
You're correct, Jaco. Yes.
Do we have any questions from folks out there in Zoom land that didn't write in? Oh, Kathy Carroll wants to know if you saw a sage sparrow or a Lewis's woodpecker.
Great question. That gets in something I was, wondering whether I should mention. So, and I have to say, I just realized my battery is getting low here and I'm not plugged in. But sage sparrow was one that I missed. It was on my target list, and boy, I tried all over, and I did not get a sage sparrow. I did get a distant Lewis's woodpecker. So I had pretty good looks. It was distant, and there was only one. It kind of surprised me that it was flying so high over a sort of a mountain area. It took me a while to realize it was even a woodpecker. Excuse me while I just try and find it.
We're going to plug in.
Yes. I'm in this hotel room and oh my gosh, this is Ecuador. They don't have a lot of plugs.
This is Ecuador, he said? He said.
Yes, I'm in Ecuador. So, oh, there's one. I got it.
So,
Is that Liz?
yeah, go ahead.
So people want to know how to get a list of where you birded.
Yes, so good. And I meant to say that earlier, maybe I did, is that yes, absolutely. If you want to email me, please do, or find, my email contact from Juliet, and I'll send you a full list.
Okay. Can we type it in the chat?
The full list?
No, your email. Not the full list. Your email.
Sure.
Jessica, do you have that at your fingertips?
Yes, John, your
putting it into the
Gmail account is fine.
Gmail?
I have two. So here's my personal Gmail.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get out of being the middleman.
No, that of course, yes. Yes, if anyone wants to know anything about me, contact Julia.
Yeah.
First.
I have a PhD in John Mills, so I can help you with that. And Yako says the warbler was split into rufous capped and chestnut capped. And rufous capped is the northern population. So that's the one John showed us.
Oh, okay. So maybe the second bird I showed, which was from the southwest coast of Mexico, could have been the other one.
Could have
No,
been, yeah.
the chestnut caps don't start until, I want to say, Nicaragua or Costa Rica.
Oh, okay. Good.
So
Maybe you'll
same
have
day.
one down there in Ecuador.
Yeah, I don't know if they're here. I'm not sure.
No.
Don't think so.
Dawn was wondering, she was surprised to see the birds at arm's length from the wolf. There were mallards. I guess they'll often do whatever they need to do to defend their nest.
I'm guessing that's a lot of what it's about, right? So animals and birds are much braver when their young are in jeopardy or their nest is in jeopardy.
Yes, of course. Any other questions from the audience?
Did you do most of the planning at the beginning, or did you do some as you went along as well?
Only a very loose plan, such as the basic map that I showed at the beginning. But that was about it. So really the real planning happened as I went, and it had a lot to do with looking at eBird and seeing where things were being seen as I moved to different spots. Yeah, great question.
I remember birding with you before you left when we were looking at an American bittern. And I was worrying about you so much because this was before any of us had vaccines or even
Yes.
knew when that might happen? And did you feel safe with COVID as you went along? And how did you keep yourself safe?
I don't know. I did feel safe. I mean, first of all, I was really alone much of the time. And even when I went to motels, cafes, places were really quiet. Probably because everybody else is being so careful. And there'd be masks in some of those places. And so, no, I never felt afraid, really.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And you obviously came back safe and sound, so.
Right. I mean, I
All's
might
well that
go-
ends well.
go- I think, and not to be political at all, but there's an awful lot of fear and some of it justified, I'm sure. But statistically speaking, I understood at the time that very few people, the people that were dying of especially the earlier strain, would really be much older people and typically with comorbidity. So I didn't feel like I was in that group. If I was going to get it, I thought I'd probably survive.
Mhm.
And I did get it.
You did get it.
Yeah, not then, but I did get it afterwards, and I'm still here.
Oh,
And
good.
so
It's
maybe
good to
I'm
know you're
back
still
here.
here. Yikes. Everybody stay safe because the new variant is very contagious and there's lots of people walking around with it that are completely asymptomatic. So
Wow. Good. Thanks for the warning.
that's what I'm hearing. My friend told me her daughter, who's a college sophomore, just was random testing and she had COVID and she had no symptoms whatsoever. So, stay outside. That's what I recommend.
Yes.
Yeah. And don't come to any of our bird walks if you don't feel well.
Really
And
nice.
come to all the bird walks if you're doing well. So, because I want to see everyone. Any more questions for John? John, when are you coming back or are you coming back to Washtenaw County?
It's indeterminate.
Uh-huh.
This is really a big experiment. A silver lining was, I think I mentioned earlier that I learned that all my, I own a software company. Another, really amazing thing is the company is doing better now. We come out of the pandemic, but I think I have more energy as a leader, and being here has been really good for me, and my team have been great about it, and the online has been working fine. So my plan is to experiment being in this area of Ecuador for maybe another 6 months, but then to live in the highlands of Ecuador for a while, maybe in the north.
Wow.
But even then to experiment with other places in South America, I just don't know yet. Yeah.
My real question is, are you coming back to be our area leader for Linden and Sylvan in May for the May count?
Maybe I can visit just for that,
That would be great.
to visit friends and family. Yes.
Yeah.
I'll have to time it right.
Well, we miss you, so come back and visit us
Thank you.
occasionally.
Definitely. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you so much from everyone at Washtenaw Audubon and all of our guests tonight. For those of you who are not members, it's, all of our programs, our online programs are free, but if you wish to join, it's very easy. You can go onto our website and join through that, washtenawaudubon.org. And let's all give a round of applause to John. He did a fabulous job with his presentation. Thank you, John.
Thanks. One more comment is my daughter's visiting me next week, and she's bringing me a lens of a whole, a really fancy real camera. So I'll be able to take pictures like Ben.
Yeah, so
Well-
we will already have had birds of Ecuador, but you'll have to do birds of
Yeah, I'll have
like
to
the
get some other
highlands in
areas.
Ecuador or something
That's right.
for
I
us.
know that he was here right before I arrived.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have to go to a different country so we can get a different program from you.
Sure.
Thanks again. We appreciate your
All right.
help so much. Normally, we'd like to send you a Washtenaw Audubon t-shirt, and I'm not sure where I can do that, but when you come back to Washtenaw, I will get one to you.
Oh, great. Okay. If you really did, I do have an
Yeah?
address. there
You have
that
an
you could
address?
send-
Oh,
Yeah.
shoot me an email and give me
Will
your
do.
address.
Will
Okay.
do.
So hope to
Great.
see you soon.
All
Have a
right.
great
Thanks,
time.
everyone. Bye.
Thanks again.